9 o'clock, in time for the November 19th meeting of the Board of County Commissioners of Indian River County. We're going to begin with a moment of silent reflection for the first responders, which will be followed by an invocation by Reverend Holly Adams of the Community Church of Vero Beach, and then the Pledge of Allegiance led by County Administrator Jason Brown. Please rise.
Will you pray with me? God of creation and justice and mercy, we are mindful this morning of your promise that where two or more are gathered, you are here in our midst. Lord, we welcome you among us today and celebrate the gift of life and community you have blessed us with. With great humility, we acknowledge the awesome ministry to which you have called this council, to be stewards of a most beautiful corner of the world, with responsibility for the lives and livelihood of the many men, women, and children who call this place home. We ask that you would open our ears so that we may hear not just your still small voice, but also the voices speaking the true needs of all our people. May you also open our minds to follow your wisdom, enabling us to lead wisely amid the conflicting interests and issues of our times. May you also open our hearts to receive your wonderful love, that we may work together in harmony even when there is honest disagreement. Help us to honor the humanity and dignity of those who disagree with us, and to treat all persons as our brothers and sisters with the reverence your creation deserves. Finally, may you open our spirits to all that binds us together as your beloved children, along with the reminder that we are all equal in your sight. May you grant these leaders of our community peace and justice in their personal lives and a profound joy in their stewardship. May they do everything with love and, in the words of the prophet Micah, act justly, love mercy, and walk humbly with our God. Amen.
Amen. Thank you.
Everyone, please join me in the pledge. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The next item in today's meeting is the election of Board of County Commissioners Chairman. And for this, I'm going to pass the meeting over to Mr. Reingold. Do you want that? You
gotta have the actual
want to have the hammer? Okay.
The hammer,
Please.
sir. Thank you, Mr.
We only get to
Chairman.
hold it once a year. So.
I will now open up the floor for nominations for Chair of the Board of County Commissioners of Indian River County.
Mr. Reingold, it'd be my pleasure and honor to nominate Commissioner Susan Adams as Chairman of the Indian River County Board of County Commissioners.
Second, but I think you already had one.
All right, we had a motion from Commissioner O'Brien and a second by Commissioner Fletcher for Commissioner Adams. Are there any other nominations on the floor? Hearing none, is there a motion to close the floor?
Motion to close?
Second.
There's a motion to close the floor by Commissioner Fletcher, second by Commissioner O'Brien. All in favor of that motion?
Aye.
All opposed? That motion passes 5-0. There was only one motion, so therefore it's moved forward with the vote on the name on the floor, which was Commissioner Adams for Chair of the Indian River County Board of County Commissioners. And we just take a vote based upon the nomination that was already made.
Aye.
Aye.
And that was 5-0. Any opposed? None. And with that, I would like to congratulate Susan Adams on
Thank you, gentlemen, for the trust and honor. I appreciate that. And I just want to say thank you to my mom who surprised me by being here today. Always an inspiration.
All right, with that, I will take care of the second item, which is are there any nominations for the Vice Chair of the Board of County Commissioners of Indian River County?
Mr. Reingold, I'd like to nominate Commissioner Joe Flesher as Vice Chair.
Second.
There is a motion for Commissioner O'Brien, for Flesher, made by O'Brien and seconded by Solari. Are there any other nominations on the floor? Seeing none, is there a motion to close the floor?
Moved.
Second.
That was a motion by Commissioner Solari, seconded by Commissioner Adams, I believe. And with that motion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That motion has been closed. Seeing as there was one nomination, we will move forward with a vote on the floor, which was for Commissioner Flesher to serve as Vice Chair. All in favor of that motion?
Aye.
All opposed? And with that, it's a 5-0 vote for Commissioner Flesher to serve as Vice Chair. And I want to congratulate Commissioner Flesher.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I don't have to do that again. Right, maybe in the future.
And with that, I now get to pass the gavel on to Ms. Adams.
She's got good attendance.
All right. I trust that if I make a mistake, y'all will correct me. All right, we'll move
I'll
on.
have to move Peter over to my seat.
Okay. The next item is any additions or deletions to the agenda, gentlemen, or staff?
Move to approve as presented.
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner O'Brien, a second by Commissioner Zork. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item is proclamation. Presentation of proclamation designating November 2019 as Alpha 1 Antitrypsin Deficiency Awareness Month. This will be presented by Commissioner Peter O'Brien to Ms. Lisa Kosak. If you'd like to come on up.
Come on up, yeah. Just a point of order, is your preference to be Madam Chair, or how would you prefer to be addressed?
I will answer to pretty much whatever you want to say, as long as it's chair, chairperson, chairwoman, chairman, whatever.
Well,
Chair.
it's your preference, so I'm just asking.
Madam Chair is fine.
Madam Chair it is. All right.
Write that one down.
Joe, you still don't have a vote.
Good morning, and I'll read the proclamation, and if you'd like to add a few words, you'd be more than welcome, okay?
Thank you so much.
All right. This is a proclamation designating the month of November 2019 as Alpha 1 Antitrypsin Deficiency Awareness Month. Whereas Alpha 1 Antitrypsin Deficiency, referred to as Alpha 1, is one of the most common and serious hereditary disorders in the world and can result in life-threatening lung disease in adults and liver disease in both children and adults. And whereas Alpha 1 has been identified in nearly all populations and ethnic groups, and it is estimated that about 1 in every 2,500 Americans have the disorder, including up to 6% of Caucasians in the U.S. who carry a single deficient gene that may be passed on to their children. And whereas Alpha 1 is widely underdiagnosed and misdiagnosed, with fewer than 10% of those predicted to have it being correctly diagnosed, and requiring an average of 5 doctors and 7 years from the time symptoms appear before a proper diagnosis is made using a simple blood test. And whereas it is important to increase awareness of this serious hereditary disorder, and whereas during the month of November, a nationwide awareness campaign will take place throughout the country to educate the public as well as the medical community on Alpha 1 detection and treatment for those affected by this condition. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed by the Board of County Commissioners of Indian River County, Florida, that the month of November 2019 be designated as Alpha 1 Antitrypsin Deficiency Awareness Month, and that the Board wishes to increase familiarity with the symptoms of Alpha 1, particularly in those between the ages of 20 and 50, and thereby reduce underdiagnosis and misdiagnosis of this condition. Adopted this 19th day of November 2019 signed and endorsed by all 5 county commissioners. So how do we diagnose this disease?
Actually, the Alpha One Foundation offers a free and confidential finger stick test. And you just reach out to alpha1.org, and they'll send it to your house in a nondescript envelope, and you prick your finger and send it in. I always start crying when I'm doing these things. But I just really greatly appreciate this opportunity. I was here last year, and the proclamation was displayed in Orlando at our national conference, along with 70 other proclamations. And this year, it'll be proudly displayed in Dallas at our national conference, where we have around 600 to 700 researchers, doctors, and patients that attend on a yearly basis. But these are great opportunities for us to spread our word, since we're a rare, genetic condition. We don't get a lot of exposure, such as diabetes or cancer, and so these opportunities for us are immensely important. So again, thank you so very much. And if you know of anybody with liver issues, they should be tested. Anybody with COPD, emphysema, that's standard operating care for thoracic doctors and pulmonary doctors. Treatment consists of, for lung issues such as that I have, I get an infusion once a week of plasma. So donate plasma, sign up to be an organ donor. I mean, all of these things are very important to my community. There's also new treatments that are out. Indian River County at the Cleveland Clinic just did their first valve, one-way valves in lungs. I had mine done last May at the Mayo Clinic, and that's held my breathing out immensely. So I do infusions once a week. I have valves in both my lobes. The next step, if I were to continue to decrease, would be a lung transplant, which we all try to fight off as long as possible. So anyway, I have some information that I can leave here for anybody that's interested. alpha1.org. And I just want to say, whoever's doing the veterans thing next, thank you so much, because my dad was in World War II, and my son is on a ship in Japan right now. So thank you.
Thank you for the service of your family to our
All
country.
right.
Come on up. You're quite welcome.
All right. Our next item is a presentation by the Vietnam veterans of Indian River County. And I believe we have quite a contingent, so gentlemen, come on up.
Good morning. Congratulations, Ms. Adams. Welcome. Usually I come here to ask you guys for something. Well, I'm not doing that today. I'm here to actually recognize a couple gentlemen regarding the golf tournament that we've had for the last five and a half years, and we want to recognize these two gentlemen. So I normally don't do this. I normally speak off the cuff, but I wrote some stuff down so I didn't forget it. So I'm going to read this as well as I can. Thank you for having us. We started this golf tournament for veterans 5.5 years ago, and most of you sitting here were here from year one and have supported us in one way or the other to help us make this event successful. If it wasn't for the county and your incredible employees, we could have never got it off the ground. Or gained the notoriety that we happily accept. People in the county actually reach out to me now and call me and ask me, when are you having that tournament? Excuse me. Through the years, there have been 4 constants. One's the Board of County Commissioners. You guys have always stood behind us 100%. Of course, Mike Zito and his staff are incredible. I remember when David Fleet would come through here and we'd ask him for something, and David would always make it right. We'd say, all right, you gotta talk to Mike. Mike, easy phone call. Mike, can you please help us with this? No problem. The third is Mr. Richard Romani and his staff at Winn-Dixie and 27th and Oslo Road. And then fourth is Bella Nagy and his great staff at Sandridge Golf Course. I'm here to recognize Mr. Romani and his staff at Winn-Dixie. I've known Mr. Romani for 15 years. I started out with him when I was the commander for the Italian-American War veterans, raising funds outside of his store on 27th and Oslo. He sponsors our golf tournament, not only with gift cards and great grocery items, but huge raffle items, which is normally the great grand prize that we have at our tournaments. He also started a grocery bag program. I'm not sure if you all frequent this Winn-Dixie, in which he helped the Veterans Council for Indian River County, where he gives them $1 for every grocery bag that's sold over there, which is a new program. The new program he also started with us, with the Vietnam veterans, even though I'm not a Vietnam veteran, I'm a Desert Storm vet, is the Cooking with Heroes. And is what it does, I'm just gonna explain it real quickly, is that Winn-Dixie and Mr. Romani and his staff provide us all the food, and then we go out and we go ahead in front of his store, and he brought a DJ this year with us and everything, and we cook the food, and then we sell it. And we had the gentleman from the American Legion, I think you all know Al Davis and Leon and everybody. So we made, I'm not sure how much money we made, but quite a bit, and we got to share it with the American Legion and with the Vietnam veterans for this year. And that is actually going to be an ongoing thing, and we'll put it in the community. I'm sure Mr. Romani will have it in the paper when we're going to be doing it, and I know he already told me it's in his budget, so that's a great thing. So in the years since the golf tournament, we have made approximately $200,000 for veterans and veterans causes in Indian River County. And on behalf of the veterans and the Vietnam veterans of Indian River County, I'd like to thank you and your staff and present you with a token of our appreciation. Mr. Romani? Thank you. I'll let you read it. You can go out there. It's Richard Romani.
Cooking with Heroes, and we appreciate it, and we'll be there every year as long as we can, helping the veterans, the local veterans. It means a lot that it's going local. We look for that. My family's been in this county, I think, since 1925. So it's something that stays local, and that's what we appreciate. Rick Romani, store manager, Vietnam Veterans of Indian River County, thanks for the partnering with us and saluting our veterans-rich community. Your store proudly supports and gives back to our veterans. Your generosity is an inspiration to our hometown heroes. Bravo. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
For those who don't know me, I'm Vic Diaz. I'm the treasurer of Vietnam Veterans of Indian River County. As Curtis mentioned, we had a golf tournament last year, which turned out to be a monumental event. And we could not have done it without the assistance of a wonderful county employee. It's a good example of county government serving the people of Indian River County. I'd like to read our appreciation. Extraordinary people do exceptional deeds. And this is to Bella Nagy. You have gone far beyond your scope of obligatory duties. The 2019 Mary Snyder Annual Veterans Golf Tournament's success was because of you, a true supporter of the veteran community and an American hero. We're presenting this to Bella Nagy because he was the one responsible for us being able to pull off one of the largest golf tournaments Indian River County has ever seen at Sandridge Golf Tournament. So Bella.
Thank you, Vic and Curtis. It's an exceptional team to work with every year. Curtis and Vic, the energy that Curtis brings to this is amazing. And I want to thank also Kevin Kerwin and his staff at Parks and the Fairgrounds for allowing us to use the Ag Center there. When we outgrew our clubhouse with 200 plus people, and we didn't know where to put them for the lunch, so we moved it over there. Huge success. And we look forward to an even bigger event. I also want to thank my staff for the work that they do, and that day making things run as smooth as possible. Thank you for this honor. Appreciate it.
Thank you. This year's golf tournament is June 13th. We already have the date. Bella and I set it as we're eating lunch. So I want to thank you all for letting us use the fairgrounds. We are going to go over 200 this year. Last year was 200 golfers, which broke 32-year record, I believe. And we'll have more this year, and we look forward to doing it. And all of our money stays in Indian River County, every single bit of it.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sergeant.
Thank you. So, I'd just like to thank Mr. Romani with Winn-Dixie. Your support and partnership is awesome, and what you do for the community is truly fantastic. And I wanted to point out, for those that might not be aware, that Mr. Nagy was recently awarded by the South Florida PGA the Youth Player Development Award, which I understand is the second time he's received this award. So we're truly lucky to have such wonderful employees in Indian River County. Thank you for all you do.
Thank you. Being behind our back. Victor. Curtis. What's going on? Yeah. He's got to run the mill now. Yeah. Oh, boy. Very nice.
Right between us, it'll work out, I swear. On three. 1, 2, 3. One more. 1, 2, 3.
Congratulations, Sean.
Thank you again. Thank you. Madam Chair,
Yes, sir.
this will be the first challenge of your chairmanship. We have item number 10B1, and the companion item on my items would be 14C1,
Okay.
and we neglected to attach that because of all the excitement and banter of the election and appointment of the
Would you like to connect
Commission.
those?
So I
Madam Chair, we've never allowed this before. I'm just
yeah,
saying.
we've never.
Yeah,
And-
right off the
This is
bat,
totally
you're
go-
Trying to
this
get
is
things
totally
through
going
right
against
off the bat.
protocol right here, you know.
And,
right off the bat.
and remember that Commissioner Adams is also in the audience.
Right.
No pressure.
No pressure. I'm sure that will be fine. We can combine those together.
She already knows that we're supposed to take a vote on this. I mean, now it's already a dictatorship. This is going to be a long year.
It is.
I-
I'm kidding. Would you, is that the?
That I would make a motion to attach those two items as companion items for the efficiency of this commission.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Flesher and a second by Commissioner Solari to combine the two items. All in favor? Opposed? All right. Made it through that. Moving on. There's no minutes for approval, so we'll go on to informational items. I'll just note that it is the landfill closure and collection service changes for Thanksgiving holiday weekend, which I believe is also listed on the website. Next item is consent agenda. Does anybody need to pull anything from the consent agenda?
8D,
8D.
Madam Chair.
All right. Anybody from the public wishing to pull anything from the consent agenda? No? All right.
Madam Chair, move approval as amended.
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Flesher, second by Commissioner Zork. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, then we'll move on to 8D, rejection of bid for Hobart Park Ball Fields. Commissioner Zork.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Not sure if I should direct this question to Jason or to the folks in purchasing in the back, but obviously the project came in more robust than where we thought our original estimates would be. But in the way that the prices were secured from the different vendors and contractors, could we pursue negotiating with the lowest contractor to see what they would recommend to change or modify to get us down to the original budget amount that we had with the original engineer's estimate?
Good morning, Jennifer Hyde, County Purchasing Manager. I think once the board does reject this bid, it would be appropriate for us to talk to the low bidder and other bidders for any input that they may have for value engineering going forward.
And then also, I see it shows the cost to re-advertise is $100, but won't we have to go back to our CCNA vendor to get them to basically repackage and decide what's going to be in it, and we're gonna have to pay them, I would think.
I think we looked at the work order for the design for this, and this was anticipated as part of it, so we're not expecting to have to pay the consultant any additional, from what I understand from the department.
Okay. All right, well, with that, I will move for approval,
All right,
or staff recommendation, I'm sorry.
I have a motion by Commissioner Zork, and was that a second, Commissioner
Yes.
Fleischer? All
Yes,
right,
ma'am.
any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next, we'll move on to constitutional officers. First is Indian River County Tax Collector Carol Jean Jordan. Welcome. Always a pleasure to have you with us. Thank you.
Excited. Thank you, Chairman Solari, for your year of work. I know it's not an easy job. I don't envy you all. Well, first off, I just want to say a big thank you to your staff and to mine for an amazing year. Sorry, my voice is not too good today. We couldn't do any of this without all of them. And of course, today I have Adria from my office. I have Lori Bloom from Motorist Services. I have Eve Preet from Finance and Debbie G from the Tax Department. And they're just amazing, as you all well know. You, excuse me, work with them so often. And I have to say, thank you, Rich. He is just a wonder. You know, we've just gotten through this Sebastian renovation, and I know there was days he just wished I would go away. I know that. There's no doubt in my mind. But bless his heart, he put up with us and worked with us so hard to make Sebastian renovation a success. Excuse me, it's the bug. And I will tell you, the customers love it. Business is really picking up. It slowed down. I was surprised, but it did slow down a little bit, and it's really picked up. And they just come in and they ooh and they ah. Again, excuse me. And they brag about it. They say it's so pretty, so clean, so nice, so pleasant, and so on and so forth. So again, thank you, Rich. I know we're hard to work with, but we love you. And thank all of you for that big investment. The beach office yesterday handed out the new little office that we have opened to try to take the traffic off of the main office. I keep saying the fire marshal's going to shut us down. It's so busy over there. Anyway, the beach office handled 40 tax bills and 38 pieces of extensive title work. So that's almost 100 people that aren't in this office or Sebastian office or West. So that certainly is meeting our expectations, which is to keep people out of the offices. We've been asked to do something else out at West Office. IDEMIA, the company that we contract with for TSA PreCheck. We also do Twix cards, state identification cards. They've asked us to take on flight aliens. I love the word, flight aliens. It basically, I believe, will be mostly flight school students that require special identification. It'll be foreign documents that we're quite used to, so we're going to take on that task as well. And we've found that to be somewhat profitable, as well as a convenience to the flight schools here in the county. Yesterday's online transactions, another thing that we're trying to do to keep people out of the office. Express Lane, which is where you go on your computer, you apply for your registration, you pay for it, preferably with e-check because there's no charge. And before 3 o'clock in the afternoon, same day, we'll send you an email and tell you to pick it up, and you can pick it up at the drive-thru. Or in Sebastian, you just walk in and it's at the counter. The internet transactions, we had a total of, on internet, we had 169 transactions yesterday, which we're really excited with. Again, e-checks, which is improving, were 139 of those. Renew Express is the one I'm working the hardest on because they don't tend to use the e-checks. Again, anybody that you, oh, thank you. Anybody that you talk to that talks about, you know, the credit card fees, which we don't like, we have gotten our third-party vendor to agree to no charge for electronic banking, e-checks. You put in your bank routing number, you put in your bank account number, and there's no fee for using that. And it is very secure. I can tell you our systems are extremely secure. So that's a total of online transactions just yesterday of 333, which again, 333 people that aren't in the office. Excuse me. 2009, and again, we didn't have quite the number, the tracking that we do now, but in 2009, we had 125,000 transactions. In 2019, we had 460,000 transactions. We don't have that many more employees, so we're really pushing to make the best of what we can. And finally, and the number one thing is in 2019, we're bringing you another big check. It's $2,843,493 returned to the County Commission, and we're happy to do it. We're pleased to do it. And again, we thank you so much. Over 12 years, we've been able to bring back $34 million to the county and to the taxpayers. So again, that's because of your help, my staff's help, and all of us. So thank you so much, and I'd like to present the check.
Thank you. We'll be happy to accept it.
Morning.
Thank you, Council.
Would you all come on? Come on, ladies, don't be shy.
She's not even on the job for an hour, and she gets a $2.8 million check. What's with that?
Wow, that was fast.
The ladies have to stick together.
Yes, yeah. There's something funny going on around here.
I was thinking they could have, thank you.
They work for this, so they need to help hold it.
Okay, on 3, 1, 2, 3. One more. 1, 2, 3. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, our next item is an Indian River County property appraiser, Mr. Wesley Davis, with his annual report. Mr. Davis?
Good morning, Madam Chairman.
Oh,
And
do we need to?
quite an honor, just to let you know, as far as, am I messing up, say anything? Okay.
No.
Keep me in line.
I might be, so but that's okay.
Well, just, that it has been 11 years since any commissioners has had the opportunity to say, Madam Chairman. The last one was Sandra Bowden. And it appears to me that you're about the 7th. We're going starting back from Amalie Loy, 73 to 75. Carolyn Eggert, 1990, 1992, 1997. Fran Adams, 96 and 2000. And then Ruth Stambridge in 2002. Caroline Ginn in 2004. And Commissioner Bowden in 2008. Well, going back whenever I was vice chair. So I think you're in good, that's a high water mark. Have no doubt that you'll be able to handle it, so, but congratulations.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. With that said, I'm the 6th property appraiser in the history of Indian River County. Only 6 of them prior to this. And actually, in 6 weeks, it will be 1 year since Governor Scott appointed me to this position. Since then, we've completed our first cycle of homestead applications, assessment period, initial estimates, trim notices, budget hearings, final rolls, and I'm proud to say they have all been completed on time and accurate. One of my first priorities when working with staff was to initiate a 5-year plan embracing technology. And as an example of our progress, I can announce today that for the first time in the history of Indian River County, you can apply for your homestead online. You no longer have to come into the office and look anybody face to face. You can do that online, and we take the process from there. So we're trying to help Carol Jean out with her parking spots out in front, if we can keep them from coming in and see us. We're trying to, if they're not getting a homestead, then therefore they can park where somebody used to. And speaking of homesteads, there's about 45,000 homesteads in Indian River County. Last year, we processed approximately 4,200 new homestead applications. Now, that's not people necessarily moving into the community. They could have moved around the corner, but they still had to process their homestead. So my goal as property appraiser this year is to go from 0 to 60 in 1 year. I want to make it so that we do 60% of our homestead applications online, and again, keeping them out of the offices. But if you still do want that personal touch, please come in. We'll help you out, and so we certainly will always offer that service. We have provided many changes initiated to save money and also to provide transparency in budgeting and spending with the help of a citizen audit committee, of which, before the governor appointed me, I had the opportunity to meet with the chairman, Commissioner Solari, and we agreed we had an unprecedented opportunity to bring in a group of citizens from the Taxpayers Association to open up the books, to look at the policies and procedures, and to give input, listen to best sound practices. And some of those committee members are here with me today. I see Mr. Daniel Stump, right back there. I see Chip Landers and Vice Mayor Bob Auwater. They're here with me today. And I'd like to say we did that task on time, and we got it completed. We figured about 6 months. We got it completed in 4. So we wrapped it up. It was one of the commissioners' favorite sayings. Let's end this committee as soon as the task was done, and we did. And so, but that was a tremendous opportunity. And as property appraiser, the main thing that I remember coming out of that was whenever we have a county administrator in there and the clerk of the circuit court, and their words were they were very impressed with the transparency. And as a constitutional officer, that's something that I hold to the highest regard, and I certainly do appreciate that compliment, especially from those two individuals. I'm also happy to say that we are right now, we have we're still with 90% of the staff that came in today with, as far as 1 year ago. But also what I'm extremely impressed with, I was sitting up there during the Great Recession, and we had to ask the constitutional officers to reduce their staff or to reduce their budgets by 30%. That was a tough call, and we're still with that same number of staff, still getting the job done. As a result of the leadership in the array, we have instituted cost containment measures, stringent financial management, advances in technology, and a commitment to our professional staff. And because of that, I'm happy to say that today I returned to the taxpayers $226,836.29 my first year. And just as an aside, that is an increase of 183% from last year's amount that was returned. Thank you.
Fantastic, thank you.
Wesley, it's sunset.
Sunset. Oh, boy, listen, as long as they go away.
You mentioned the expedition you did for all of the members.
More about it.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Good morning. Good morning. Dan?
Chip, what'd you do, buddy? It's Chip. What happened? He said he must have said something about the
Trying to
hotel.
counting all those books at Wesley's.
Ready? Ready? On 3, 1, 2, 3. One more. 1, 2, 3. Thank you.
Wait a minute, wait a minute. Did the numbers get higher too?
We'll do it all up together. All right, gentlemen, if we could get a motion to accept the tax collector and thank you.
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Solari, second by Commissioner Flesher. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Our next item is going to be a public discussion item, which has been combined with Commissioner Flesher's item number 14C, and this is a request to speak from the Gifford Youth Achievement Center regarding a request to change an ordinance to allow alcohol to be served by a caterer at GYAC. Welcome.
Good morning. Freddie Woolfolk, 4590 57th Avenue, Vero Beach, Florida. I'm going to speak briefly. I have with my coworker, Miss Peggy Gibbs, and she's going to support me here. First of all, I just want to say thank you for allowing us to come before you this morning. We've been partners for a long time. Entering my 23rd year there at the center this coming October next year. So it means that we are not strangers. We know the ins and outs. We know what other ones is thinking before they even speaking. So I just wanted to thank you for this opportunity. I put a little bullets here to keep it short, and I'm going to go through those as quickly as I possibly can. First of all, these events would be held in the evening after the students have left for the day. We want to make sure they're now not on site. The next point is that these events will be catered. It won't be us, Freddie Woolfolk, with his bartender hat on. No, there won't be that. It will be catered by professionals, caterers and bartenders, and they will be licensed. So we won't have any dealing with the alcohol itself. Number 5, I did have a 5 on here, didn't I? Number 5, alcohol will not be sold at these events. So no selling of these alcohol beverages. GYC would obtain the appropriate insurance to cover the event, naming the county as an additional insured. We'd also, holding these events at our site will help us to enable growth. He said, well, how would it help us enable growth? Normally when we go somewhere, we go to that particular venue, they serve alcohol there at that venue, and then we invite them to come back to the GYC at their leisure. And it's hard to get them to come again, and we can kill 2 birds with 1 stone. They can have a good time, and they can also see the great facility, the programs, and meet the staff that's there. All righty. And we are asking for a change to the ordinance that would allow GYC to offer wine and beer at events at GYC-owned building on leased county land, keeping within the GYC footprint, just as is now allowed at other specific county-owned venues. What we're simply saying is that the carve-out footprint that you allowed us to lease, we're not opening the door for the whole park to have the same benefits as we. It's controlled environment, that footprint right there at GYC was what we are asking for. So again, keeping it short, we want to make sure that we say thank you so very much.
Yeah. Let me add one
Sure.
thing that you did miss on my bullet points there. These will not be big fundraising events. They're smaller donor receptions to say thank you to our many supportive donors who have helped us build the additional 14,000 square foot building that we are now proudly have on site.
Thank you, Peggy.
And thank you.
And thank
you, commissioners.
For listening. Any questions?
I'm confused. How many of these events are we talking about over what period of time?
Not many. They are.
Not many doesn't help.
Yeah, it's thank yous. Right now, we have one particular event that we would like to hold, so there might be 1 or 2 a year that are smaller in nature. They're not big, like big galas. They're just really an opportunity to bring our donors in who have helped us and say thank you, show them what we're doing, let them see what we're doing by seeing the building, going through. Everybody's always impressed when they take our tours. And so it's really just bringing them in and saying thank you. And it would be once, twice a year.
Thank you. So would you have any issue if we limited it to the twice a year?
Not at all.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Fletcher, did you have anything to add?
Well, Madam Chair, thank you. When we first approached the subject, we definitely, I was talking with Freddie and Peggy about the request, and they ran it by us, and basically they did talk about maybe 1 or 2 a year, and I'm glad that limitation statement came out, because I believe that probably be most appropriate. In addition, the quickest remedy was have it off-site, but you lose the whole sense of place, the sense of understanding of why the location is being supported and what the location is about. So I could understand that greatly. Initially, there was a request to change the ordinance, which may take some time. And after talking with council, there might be an opening because of the design of the location that we look at the lease only since it's carved out from the rest of the complex. So it's a sole location that would be, again, the guidelines would be consistent with the ordinance understanding that exists for the two authorized locations, being the fairgrounds and the IG Center, where those four items, and yes, they were discussed by Mr. Woolfolk as well, the limitations and controls to ensure public safety and a contained environment that is run with great respect, and it is done in an orderly fashion, and it would be consistent with our ordinance, but not require an ordinance change. It would be site-specific for the new location, and all activities would be contained within. The only exception would be that the cars of the attendees would be parking outside, but that would be the only indication. Outside of the event, there would be no alcohol being dispensed outside of the confines of the building. So I think that's what we had discussed, to change the written agreement with for the lease. So I'd like to see if that, Counselor, do you think that that could be entertained?
Well, currently in the code, it states that the sale and consumption of alcoholic beverages are allowed at Indian River County Fairgrounds and at the IG Center, as you had talked about, and those were specific facilities. It's prohibited otherwise at parks and recreational facilities. There's certainly an argument to be made that it's not a park or recreational facility, it's just the GYAC area. I defer to the board as to whether you would like to clean up the ordinance code. Clearly, we would want to, at least at a minimum, amend the lease to reflect the terms and conditions and the issues that we've talked about today.
If we delayed it to do the ordinance, would that impact any of your events?
We have, it would depend on how long
Okay,
the
so-
process takes. We do have one scheduled on paper at this point, February 19th, which is inviting all of our donors to the capital campaign to come back for a reception, is what we are hoping to do.
So, Mr. Reingold, do you think that would be possible to get an ordinance through by that time?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, even at the latest, January 7th would be the latest I would bring an ordinance, and would certainly try to get one beforehand.
Okay, so for myself, I'd be happy with the lease, but it leaves you a little exposed to somebody else coming by later and saying that wasn't the right way. So what would you feel more comfortable with going forward, a lease change or the ordinance change?
I mean, an ordinance code change that said 205.09, we just simply said that it was allowed at the fairgrounds, IG Center, and the GYAC, subject to the terms of the lease, would be a change that I could draft up really quickly.
Yeah, I understand it's easy, but which would you feel legally more comfortable doing?
Well, I mean, it's always easier when you clarify something and don't have the debate later on.
That's my thought, so
Right.
if it's okay with you, Commissioner.
If it could be done in an expeditious fashion, I did not want to alter any intended plans, although they had not sent out a save the date or any of that. But their intentions were in and around the end of January, early February. So that's why I suggested that. But if we can do the ordinance change, now that would require us to have an additional public meeting?
Yeah, so what I would propose to do, if it was the will of the board, would bring back the lease and the ordinance at the same time, so we would wrap them together at the same meeting. And that could be, I'd be happy to have that done either in December or the first meeting in January at the latest.
Madam Chair, I would like to make motion to move forward and direct staff to look at the ordinance and the agreement and bring them back, having accommodated the request of the applicant.
Second.
All right, we have a motion by Commissioner Flesher and a second by Commissioner Solari Any discussion?
With the discussion in the lease, I would like it in there that it's limited to the twice a year.
Yeah, and there are a couple things that I've heard from the board in terms of limitations that I'll make sure I work with the GYAC folks and all the stuff I've heard today. I'll be incorporating that into a draft lease agreement.
Sure, just, Commissioner Solari, would you be open to a cap of more like 3 or 4, just to give them a little more flexibility, or are you stuck on 2?
Well, they said 2, but I'd be, today I'll be flexible enough for the 3.
I'd be happy to move forward that we would look at the understanding of 4, then, if that's the case, if that would be best suffice. I mean, once again, it's going to be run consistent with the ordinance that is intact, which has been clearly working for the other 2 locations, realizing they are county-run locations, but it has worked and it should work, and 4 would not be an offensive number.
So you're amending your motion?
Yes, I'd like to amend the motion to 4.
Is that
I
acceptable
will amend the
for the
second.
second? Okay. We have an amended motion.
Now that I'm not chairman, all the stress is going.
Wow.
All right. Before it changes again, we have a motion by Commissioner Flesher and a second by Commissioner Solari. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you so very much.
Thank you.
All right, the next item is a public notice item. Mr. Rangel.
Thank you very much. Sorry, I got ahead of myself and moved on to Commissioner Flesher's items. Yes, we have a notice of public hearing scheduled for December 3rd, 2019. This is the county-initiated request to amend the 5-year capital improvement program and supporting data and analysis of the capital improvements element of the comprehensive plan. This will be legislative in nature. And again, this will be a public hearing that will be held on December 3rd, 2019. With that, I turn it back over to Madam Chair.
Thank you. All right, our next item is going to be an update and discussion between county and city of Vero Beach staff on the water and wastewater issues.
All right, thank you, Madam Chair. Commissioners, as you know, the city of Vero has been looking at ways to move their wastewater plant off of the Indian River Lagoon, and as part of that process, City Council and I think their Utilities Advisory Committee have directed city staff to reach out to the county to see if there is an opportunity for the city and the county to work together on potential options where the county would be able to provide services. So pursuant to that, City Manager Monty Falls had a conversation with me. He requested that the Utilities Director for Vero and Vincent, our Utilities Director, meet to discuss some of the logistics of that. So those 2 did meet. Following that, the whole group got together again, and we just looked at this from a kind of a higher level viewpoint, exploring potential partnerships. As I said, it was related mostly to the wastewater plant and a potential bulk wastewater service where the city would maintain their existing collection system and their accounts, and they would be the ones billing the customers, but the county would be kind of like the wholesaler, if you will, and providing direct bulk service, wastewater service to the city. So that would involve some piping costs to run from where the city's infrastructure currently is to county wastewater treatment facilities, and then additional pipelines for reuse to run from the wastewater plant. The leftover reuse water would be transported back to the city's reuse distribution system. So there would be significant costs involved in that. We did agree that whatever arrangement was made, the city would need to reimburse the county fully for those costs. I think one thing that's important in this discussion, whether it's just from a standpoint of a bulk wastewater agreement or more consolidation or other services where we could work together, kind of our guiding light is that we do no harm. First, do no harm to the county's ratepayers. If there is an opportunity where the county can provide assistance to the city that's a better option than them building their own wastewater plant, for instance, then I think that's a reasonable thing for us to work towards. However, we need to make sure that anything that we do would not jeopardize the county's current ratepayers and result in a rate increase that would be borne by county's existing ratepayers in order to do this. So, in summary, we've just had basic high-level discussions. I thought while the city staff has gotten direction from city council, the county commission hasn't given us any direction on that, so I wanted to bring this item to the board to kind of have discussions, get your thoughts on any discussions that we should be having with the city if we want to pursue this, any limitations that you may want to provide on any discussions that we do have with the city. But before we drill down, because it's going to take a lot more effort and a lot more detail to work out some kind of agreement, I believe that we needed to get this direction from the board. So with that, I'll stop talking, and if you guys could provide your thoughts and direction on what we should do regarding potential consolidation or service provision for water, wastewater reuse services with the city of Vero. So thank you.
All right, thank you. Who?
Well, starting from your left. No.
Oh, you can start.
Oh, okay. Commissioner Zork, we'll start with you, and then we'll work our way.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you very much. In concept, it seems like a good idea, but there's a lot of issues that I think we really have to provide guidance on to staff. Currently, we have plants, and I'll use West Regional, which I believe is 6 million gallons a day design capacity, but it's kind of like using the RS6 zoning district. You're zoned at 6 units to the acre, but you get 4.2 or 3.8, some other number. So we never really get to fully utilize that 6 million gallons. So when you look at everything inside the urban service area that may have a demand for sewer, I think we need to deduct that first from the excess capacity before we decide if we have any bulk capacity left to extend to the city. I think when you look at our numbers, I think we're, and Vinny, you can nod or come up to the podium, but I think we're roughly in the 60% utilization ballpark of our capacity. Is that somewhere in the realm of a good number?
Yes, for the record, Vincent Burke, Director Utility Services. So on paper, we have about 12 million gallons of total capacity at our 3 regional plants, 6 at West Regional, 2 at South, and 4 at Central. And if you look at the existing flows today, that's not counting any future flows. West is about 42% of existing flows versus capacity. Central is about 59%, and South is at 39%. Now, if you take into account the reserve ERUs that we have, in addition to now these are not average daily flows, these are max. So out of a 12-month period, we're looking at that snapshot in time to be able to come up with these numbers. We're looking at, again, existing flows plus additional capacity, 45% at West, close to 70% at Central, and then 48.8% at South. So there is room available on paper, but the FDEP has certain restrictions that if you tip the threshold of 75% of your flow, you then have to go into a series of steps in order to design and start looking at additional capacity.
Right, which don't go far, because that takes me to the, so if we did the math and you have on paper, then you have the reality of what you really have to work with, that if we did do an agreement, we as the county would probably have to look at undertaking adding capacity, because I think the city's plant they've talked about was in the 5 million gallon per day. I think their current flow is 3.5, so they would permit up to 5. I don't know if the city's planning on getting bigger, but they would, and maybe that's the smallest size efficient plant that's out there is 5 million gallons. I don't know how they.
So the city's at about 3.5 MGD average daily flow. The plant on the lagoon is rated at 4.5, and I believe the Kimley Horn and Associates study that was done that was presented to the Utility Council and City of Vero Beach was a 6 million gallon a day. But according to Rob Bolton, I think the city has built out about 92 or 93%, so there's really not a lot of capacity left over. But in the utility world, there's economies of scale, so it's marginally a little bit more to add additional capacity that might give you the buffer for things like rainy day events or, you know, storm surge or I&I issues that can affect the plant. Yeah.
So you would probably, in a ballpark discussion with the city, is we could, depending on what happens as the discussion moves down the line, is we could come up with a potential range of what bulk capacity charges could be, and then I would think they would take that rate and decide, are we better off going on our own, or are we better off partnering with the county? I know there was discussion that the city would utilize some of the vast vacant area they have at the airport, which is great, so they don't really need, they have a site where they can do it, and they also have the plumbing connection from the current plant through their deep well injection line that runs from that plant over to the airport, so they're kind of infrastructure connection already kind of points some of their connections that way. How far, from a connection standpoint, and I know the city has a lot of underground lines in different places, so clearly this would be, the city keeps its entire network, its billing, its meter installation, renewal and replacement of lines. We're only looking at bulk treating their capacity. Where would, once we get it into our network, I know we can move flow between our 3 plants fairly easily, or not easily, but they're plumbed to, if one has to have maintenance, you can move flow to some degree to another plant. Is that how we manage that?
We have on paper 0.85 MGD at North, which is really just a storage and repump station that sends it all down to Central. So that covers most of the northern part of the county, or it does cover the northern part of the county. So those are kind of separated. We're not able to move flows from North and Central, but then we do have the ability to direct flows on the south part, either to south, or at lift station 89, we can then send a portion or all the flows to west. So that we do have the ability at south. But in talking to Mr. Bolton, it was just general terms, not going into the details about the financials or the system pressures or the ability to convey it from one location to the other. We were looking at maybe doing a split portion of it going to perhaps Central, and then a portion going to West Regional.
Right, okay. All right, that's all I have at the moment, but I think Jason's opening comments is we can't do any harm to our current ratepayers, our current reserve ERU folks that are out there, that we have to look at a cost that we would be looking at really adding capacity in a new plant or expanding a current plant to meet these particular needs that the city might have. So thank you, Madam Chair.
No problem. Commissioner Solari.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As the staff item said that most of the detail was related to the county's providing wastewater treatment services for the city in the bulk wastewater, my remarks are mostly directed at that. But I start with a little bit of an overview to the whole sewer and water discussions. So the proposal under discussion seems to be, to me, highly problematic. First are the problems derived from our different models for running our enterprise funds. In this case, our water and sewer utilities. The county runs its utilities to provide water and services at the lowest possible price consistent with a well-run utility. The city runs its utilities in order to make a profit. The city's model is unlikely to change given that both newly elected council members made clear during the recent city council races that they think that having their utility make a profit and funnel the profit back to its general fund is a good thing. They also expressed no interest in consolidation. There's also the issue of how the city views their contracts with other government units. As we know, the City of Vero Beach and Town of Indian River Shores are now in dispute over their reuse water contract because once the county lowered its reuse water charges, the city decided not to honor the provisions of its contract with the Shores, which required the city to match county rates. It should be noted that the county has been trying for over 3 years to get a franchise agreement for water and sewer services that the city currently provides for county non-city residents. During this process, the county has dropped a lot of what it sought, reducing its requirements for a new franchise agreement to simply those which are necessary to protect the unrepresented county residents. The city has consistently stonewalled the county estimates. I'm talking to Mr. Burke about this. He thought that the city was talking about a bulk agreement of about 3.5 million gallons a day. which is basically all of the city's production. This would indicate that the city would not be going ahead with plans to build its own wastewater plant. As 40% of the city's customers are not city residents, the city would actually only need about 2.1 gallons a day to serve city residents, maybe 2.5 million gallons a day for the buffer and peak days. I'm sure that no reasonable person would suggest that the county supply wastewater services to the city at a bulk rate, which would then allow the city to charge high city rates and make a profit off of the non-city residents, which could then be used to feed its general fund. I'll note that this also acts as another city regressive tax on its own residents, which as a city resident I find to be reprehensible. But by serving only city residents, the plant size needed by the city would drop from the inflated 6 million gallons a day plant being discussed to a plant size of perhaps the 2.1 to 2.5 million gallons a day, cutting the plant cost significantly and lowering costs to its remaining city customers. Apparently, if the city freed non-city residents, it would be a win-win for all parties. I do not think it would be in the best interest of the citizens of Indian River County, nor our utility staff, to continue discussions about a bulk wastewater agreement until at least 3 preliminary matters are agreed upon. First, the city of Vero Beach, not the county, will have to pay for all the lines to and from the plant and pay for the capacity, that is the ERUs, for the 2.1 million gallons a day of wastewater. The city would have to release all non-city residents, county and shores residents, who are presently city customers, and the rate and capacity charges would have to be based on the cost of the county's next 2.1 million gallons a day, which will cost whoever provides it, the city or the county, much more than the most recent 2.1 million gallons a day of capacity. Otherwise, county customers will end up subsidizing the wastewater needs of the city of Vero Beach, and though as a citizen of the city of Vero Beach I would benefit from the subsidy, I believe it would be wrong for the county to grant it. So those are my comments, Madam Chair. I'd be happy to make a motion if there are more comments here.
Question, just to clarify your one of your 3 points there. Separating the county and the town customers out, would they still be utilizing all of the city infrastructure and just not be billed? Or are you thinking that we would run our own lines to the South Barrier Island folks and have to put in subaqueous water, sewer, and reuse lines?
I think we might have to use some of the city lines inside the city, but, and I'm not perfectly clear on this, but as I understand it, the lines in the shores are owned by the shores, and the lines in the South County, it is our contention that the city doesn't own them, and that's also Dr. Farady's contention. He's done a lot of work on them, but that was one of the initial stumbling blocks to the franchise agreement. We want to clarify that, who actually own these lines going forward. The city absolutely refused to discuss it, so we said we'd basically punt on that item for now, not give up our rights to ownership, but not address it right now so that we could actually get a franchise agreement now. So those are one of the many things we thought ought to have been resolved in the current attempt to get a franchise agreement, but which we said, well, okay, we'll postpone in order to simply tie down the minimum needs of a franchise agreement. So that's probably as good as I can answer that question at the time.
Just in general, I agree with what's been said before. We need to make sure we protect our own rate payers. And I'm not sure if we have to build additional capacity to make sure we have enough set aside, if that's going to be any cheaper than the city building their own plant. So it may be that, I think that if we get down to the nuts and bolts, they may find it's just as cheap to build it themselves and do the bulk rate, but.
Especially with the cost of the extra lines.
Exactly, right. In the big picture, I don't have a problem with staff continuing discussions. I think we should continue to try to work with the city on this. But I think it's not going to be real fruitful, my gut feeling, because I don't think the city will want to give up the profit that they get from the utility. But I would certainly give staff direction to continue meeting with the city and trying to hammer out some of these details, and we'll see how far we can get. But I think Jason's pretty clear, and Vinnie, that we want to make sure we protect our rate payers first and foremost. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Commissioner Fletcher, do you have anything to add?
Good.
All right, the only thing I would add is, my concern, I echo everybody else's concerns, but capacity and our future capacity needs, I don't want us to hamstring ourselves in the future. We have the big issue of the Sebastian annexation hanging out there. We're, that may or may not impact what we have going on and just future growth in general. So I don't want us to get 10 years down the road and kind of wish we had gone a different direction. So I'm fine with continuing discussions. I think that's what we need to do, but that's just my concern.
So in order to save staff time, I'll go ahead and make my motion, which would include the 3 points I made. If you want me to reread them again, I can. If not, we can just go by the
Will you
record.
summarize them?
Sure. Well, the city of Vero Beach, not the county, will have to pay for the lines to and from the plant and pay for the capacity. That addresses your issue specifically. The city would have to release all non-city residents, county and shores residents who are presently city customers, and the rate and capacity charges would have to be based on the county's next 2.1 million gallons a day. So the county would have to do a good study to determine what those costs would be, and not what would be the cheaper prior last 2.1 million gallons a day wastewater, 2.1 to 2.5 million gallons a day wastewater that would buy, but because otherwise the county residents would end up subsidizing the city residents. So, but I think those need to be preliminarily understood, or else we're just wasting our county staff's time.
Okay.
And I'll
with that-
second that.
All right.
And have a question of the,
Okay. What's your question?
in your presentation, you had mentioned that there was no discussion of consolidation. I don't know if we want, or you had mentioned something about.
No, I said that the backup, staff backup, focused mainly on the bulk bulk wastewater deal, and that's what my comments were focused on.
Okay.
On consolidation, the big problem with consolidation is that the city has this profit model. Right. And so they value their plant differently than we do. They value the plant, which they did the last time. They talked about consolidation based on the most they can get by selling it to the private sector. We value it based on the best possible service at the lowest price. So the best way to value a plant like this is with the discounted value of future cash flows. Our cash flows, which would mean the amounts that we then put into the general fund, are zero. Future value, the present value of future cash flows, therefore, are zero, which fits exactly what Mayor Zudin said, that the county would not pay the city for its customers. That's right, because the value to us is zero. If they sold it to the private sector, which then just jerked up the rates, there would be some value. Right. So there's that point. On top of that is the problem which has come out in the press in the last weeks, that the city's water plant is in pitiful condition, which indicates millions of dollars of deferred maintenance. Mayor Zudin has pointed out that their wastewater treatment plant has millions of dollars of deferred maintenance, some more millions of dollars. And it's quite clear, and again, Mayor Zudin's pointed this out in an article in 32963, that their underground lines have tremendous amounts of deferred maintenance. So actually then, the value to us, Indian River County, because we would be then responsible for making up all that deferred maintenance, is some tens of millions of dollars in the negative. And I'll note that actually just before this meeting, Vinnie showed me a picture of a pipe that broke, an old 1959 pipe of the county, which is going to cost significant amounts of dollars to replace. But the city's infrastructure is, on average, probably well over 25 to 30 years older than the county's. So we can only imagine how much unseen deferred maintenance it is. So again, if we actually went to the city and began talks about consolidation, understanding the facts in the ground, I think would be shut out before we even, really finish the discussion. So again, and again, you have the two new council members who are quite clear. They want the profit, they don't want consolidation. Right. So until...
I think we could safely just take consolidation off the table.
Well, I think so.
Which I agree with everything that you had said. Those are all, you can't value a system on cash flow because of the deferred maintenance and the unknown maintenance and renewal and replacement that they have not undertaken in the past 10, 20 years, that is it's almost like I wouldn't even be in favor of taking if it was completely given to us, because the liability of the unknown is I think a significant tens of millions of dollars.
Not at this point, we couldn't.
All right, yes.
Just would add one thing. I have no problem with the request to get the county customers off. I'm not sure about the Shores customers. They have a separate franchise agreement currently, and I think we would need the town to weigh in if they want to go down that road as well. We do have Vice Mayor Atwater here, so maybe he wants to address it. But I just think, I'm all for getting the county folks off.
I'll adjust it to that, but that we take.
We can work with the town if that's.
Absolutely.
Yeah, okay, just wanted to.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I don't want to meddle with the town's
Yeah,
business.
no, I'm absolutely good at that, thank you.
Okay. Any other discussion? No? All right. All in favor? I'm sorry. Mm-hmm.
Was there a second?
Zork, Commissioner Zork.
And Mr. Atwater, I think.
Oh, I'm sorry. Anybody from the public, Mr. Atwater? Sorry. I'll get a hang of this at some point. I got a year.
Good morning, Madam Chair and Commissioners. For the record, I'm Bob Atwater. I'm Vice Mayor of the Town of Indian River Shores. I also act as the town's representative on the City of Vero Beach Utilities Commission, and I'm the Vice Chairman. And you know, Mr. Solari brought up a lot of issues politically that would have to be dealt with. However, I would still like you to consider at least doing the studies for potential consolidation of the systems. And I realize there's a lot of issues brought up. Here, I think we have a once in a generation opportunity to get the best water system we can for all the residents of the county. The way this worked out was back in the Utilities Commission meeting in August, there was a presentation made with regard to potentially building a plant on the airport property. It was originally discussed, and then there was also some other options, including keeping the wastewater plant on the lagoon. What was missing through all that was any discussion about economies of scale. I was told by the utilities director there are no economies of scale in water and sewage treatment. I knew that wasn't the case based on my experience working in the bond market and analyzing water utilities for decades. The next meeting, I brought in 4 studies. I could have brought in a lot more, and if you printed them all out, I could have killed every tree in Indian River County that showed that there clearly are financial benefits to an economies of scale in water. So now they backed off on that. And I realize there's the issues that was brought up with regard to the pipes and so forth, but there is starting to be movement recognizing the facts as opposed to rhetoric. And I realize it may be a bridge too far, but I would ask you to consider having staff, at least having discussions with recognizing all the obstacles have been brought up about fully consolidating the 2 systems. I think at the end of the day, we want to have a state-of-the-art system that will be good for all the residents of the county for 30 or 40 years, not have one that's behind the times and then the county one which is state-of-the-art. So I think it's important to at least look at that. Again, it may turn out to be a waste of administrator staff time, but I think at the end of the day, at least we've vetted all the options, done all the analysis, and be sure that we tried. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Atwater. Anybody else from the public wishing to speak on this item? No. Commissioners, any other discussion? No. All right. Well, we have a motion by Commissioner Solari and a second by Commissioner Zork. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. And with that, we will take a 10-minute break.